thank God for the lighthouse. Lord, I owe my life to Him. You see, Jesus is the lighthouse. And from the rock to Him, and shone His light of love around me. And I really see just what it wasn't for the lighthouse. Tell me where was my defeat? Precious God, we thank you, Lord, for your mercy and your goodness and your kindness. Let the word of God be edifying, that we receive it with thanksgiving. Good Lord, hand clap up. Book of Hebrews, chapter 12. And we will begin reading at verse 1. I pray that you are grateful for being alive today. That the Lord, it is He who woke us up this morning. And it is He who started us on our way. It is true that the fool says in his heart, there is no God. But yet man seems to want to believe theories over God's spiritual truths. You think about evolution, man evolving from one creature to the next. Nature itself does not even agree with that, because they will yet still be evolving. But yet, with all of its theories and where we come from, in just a simple writing, it is written, from dust you come, dust you shall return. And that's a fact. And evolution talks about fossils being found trillions and trillions of years old. You know, the dinosaur bones that you see in the art museums are not real. They're not real bones. They find these fossils and they put them together and they come up with their own creations. Now, some teach that dinosaurs lived millions and millions of years before man, and was destroyed in the Ice Age. Everybody got the theories. So my point is this: if they were destroyed millions of years before men came around, how in the world does a man know what one looks like to be able to recreate it? They've never seen them. And if they saw a fossil, they wouldn't know what to call it, a dinosaur or not. Of course, the word dinosaur simply means large lizard. That's all it means, large lizard. Around the 1800s, the name dinosaur was given. So, if you want to say, do you believe in dinosaurs meaning large lizards? Yes, I believe in large lizards. Alligators, crocodiles, 30-foot, and the kind of whatever you call it, and king snakes. These are large lizards. These are big. But do I believe in dinosaurs as in the Ice Age, Tyrannosaurus Rex, The bronze sword? No. No. And you shouldn't either. No. No. But I do believe in the Word of God. Hebrews chapter 12. And it says this. Wherefore, seeing we are compassed about with such great a crowd of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which does so easily beset us, and let us run with patience the race that is set before us. That's a word of confidence and a word of comfort. Seeing that we have so many witnesses that can give us witness to the power and the grace of God. We have so many witnesses and testimonies of those who have strived to win and they fought the good fight of faith. Let us lay aside every weight and every sin. Let us put down everything that can easily beset us, and let us run this race with patience that is set before us. Why? Because we have a cloud of witnesses that have proven to us that God is able. So with patience, we can continue to run, because if he did it for them, he can do it for us. I feel the virtue. If he took Moses and the children of Israel across the Red Sea, then he can take us across the Red Sea. If he preserved Daniel in the lion's den, he can preserve us. If he kept David, he can keep us. If he fed the widow woman for years of famine and her barrel never ran dry, he can feed us. Romans or Hebrews chapter 11 talks about the hall of fame of faith. How women had their loved ones brought back to life, and how the power of God moved greatly. We are surrounded by a great cloud, because they are on high now, of witnesses. And because I know what God can do, I'm going to lay aside every weight. I'm going to lay aside every sin that does so easily beset us. We're always trying to lose weight. I need to lose some myself. But we also need to lose weight spiritually. We need to drop off the excess weight that holds us down. We need to drop off everything that's not like God, that comes to hinder us. And with patience, don't give up. Run this race that is what? Set before us. Some people are still standing on the sideline, hoping things will change. No, there's a race set before you. It's not going to change. You have to step off the sideline and get into the race. Go to sleep, close your eyes, take a vacation, come back to the same point, the race is still there, because it's been set before you. From here to there is glory. You know, many times God will show us the blessing that we may be encouraged, but we don't always see the in-between. Daniel, should I say, Joseph saw his brothers bowing down to him in a dream. He saw his mother and dad bowing down to him in a dream. So he saw his exhortation, but he didn't see his brothers trying to kill him. He didn't see him being sold into slavery. He didn't see himself being accused of rape. He didn't see himself being thrown in jail. All he saw was the throne. He didn't see the trials and tribulations that he would have to go through that would enable him to be able to receive the blessing. And you may say, then why didn't God show him all of that? Well, it could be. He might have been discouraged. But also, God gave him something to hope for, something to look forward to, so that when he would go through those hard times, he would remember that which was waiting on him. And I feel the virtue, and he would hold tight. Jesus said that he humbled himself and became obedient to the death and sufferings of the cross because of the joy that was set before him, the resurrection, the pouring out of his spirit. Lord, I have hope, and my hope will cause me to hold on, because I know what you can do. And then he said, this race is set before us, looking unto
When you're running a race, one thing they tell you, especially in a relay, is that don't look back. It'll slow you down. Even when you're passing the baton, you don't look back. You just hold that hand back there. But don't look back until the next man takes it. In running this race, we are looking unto Jesus. Because he is the author and he is the finisher of our book, of our faith. He's the author and the finisher of my faith. Who for the joy that was set before him, didn't know that was that, endured the cross, despising the shame, and is set down at the right hand of the throne of God. He suffered all that he went through because of the joy. He knew the outcome would purge him and strengthen him as an example unto us. Looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith. So then when your trials and tribulations and temptations and things tell you that it's over, you need to tell them you didn't write the book. Amen. I feel the virtue. You didn't write my story. You're not the author.
Thank you, Jesus.
You're not the author, nor are you the finisher of the faith that I have.
Hallelujah. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Jesus.
For consider him that endures such contradictions of sinners against himself, lest you be weary and faint in your minds. Amen. You've been hurt. You've been bruised. You've made some mistakes. You feel tired. You're fighting suicide. You're fighting depression. You're straddling. Your life is just wearing you out. Your heart is failing. You feel not loved or misunderstood. And you're getting weary. And you're fainting in your mind and in your thought. What do, Bishop? Change your thought. Amen. This is the same as saying, he that keeps their mind stayed on God, he'll keep them in perfect peace. Amen. What should I think on? Consider him that endured such contradictions of sinners against him. What should I think on? Think about how Jesus suffered. Yeah. Think about how Jesus, who was blameless, endured hardship, betrayal, denial, and even death by the hands of his own creation. Think about it. He who did no wrong. Think about the contradiction of sinners that came against him. And when you think about it, what Jesus had went through, my God and Savior went through this and more and was tempted in every manner yet without sin. If he did it, he gives me the grace, I can do it. I can stand by his grace and by his power. The Bible says, think about it and consider what Jesus went through before you become weary and faint in your mind. I'm about to give up, but I remember what my Lord and Savior went through for me. I remember how he withstood and would not faint, would not give in, and he could have gotten out of it at any time. Yes, Lord. Thank you, Jesus. He told his disciples, don't you know that at any time I can call 12 legions of angels and they will be here, and it's all over. He told Pilate, you've got no power over me. So when I remember what God has gone through, I get encouraged. I will not faint. He carried the cross to Calvary until he fell on his face. And as the man was told to help bear his cross, we have to bear our own cross, but help comes out of the sanctuary. And God will help us bear ours too. We're not alone. So when you're feeling like giving up, remember Jesus. Start thinking about how he stood. And we know he was innocent. But yet he didn't give up. And don't you give up. Now, a lot of people complain about the little trials that they go through. They complain about the things they have to deal with. And this is what the writer of Hebrews said. Listen, I understand you're going through a little suffering. I understand you feel as though nobody understands. He said, but let me tell you, some of you all, you have not resisted unto blood striving against sin. Some of you ain't shedding no blood for the gospel. Many of you haven't been threatened for the gospel.
Amen.
What are you complaining about?
Amen.
What are you fussing about?
Amen.
What are you so tired about? When there are people that are actually dying. And to this day, church, actually dying for the gospel. There are saints that are caught in the midst of war. I've been there. So when you think it's all so hard, remember, there are some that have suffered way much more than what you can imagine. And they still holding on. I feel a virtue. They're still trusting in God. He said, none of you have resisted unto blood, striving against sin. You haven't been beat. They haven't broken into your family. I've known stories on the mission field where rebels would come in and take babies and throw them out the window, trying to provoke the church to fight. And you have forgotten the exhortation which speaketh unto you as unto children. My son, despise not the chastening of the Lord, nor faint when thou art rebuked of him. Chastening, young people, is spankings, whoopings, discipline. My son, despise not the disciplining power of the Lord, and neither don't faint when God corrects you. A man that stiffens his neck too many times, you don't need to rebuke him because it'll break it. That's a stubborn individual that won't take correction. But God says, the writer says, do not despise the chastening of the Lord. And don't faint when you're rebuked. A lot of people want to throw it out, but they can't take it back. A lot of people like to give instruction and correction, but they can't be corrected. If you don't have a spirit that can be corrected or taught, then you don't have the Spirit of God guiding you. Despise not the chastening of the Lord. Don't get upset because God chastens you. Don't try to faint when God rebukes you and corrects you. You can tell that when somebody really loves the Lord because the preacher might preach a strong message, straight up, straight down. And you hear a saint that really wants God's way say, I appreciate that word. And they really appreciate it. And yet it was cutting left and right, but they are grateful for it because they got nothing to hide. Amen. Don't get upset. You know, people get mad when God chastens them. Jonah got mad. After Samson killed the 1,000 with the jawbone of an ass, he was complaining because he was thirsty. People get angry sometimes when God rebukes them. But if you be angry, sin not. And whatever you do, let God be true and every man a lie. Don't lie on the truth. Don't get mad and start lying on the truth. Listen, because let me tell you something. When I was in the management, I stayed in the office. I was a top salesman, but I guess I did it my way. I stayed in the office. And all the other agents would look at the door and listen to what the manager was saying. He was just a yelling and a screaming and a spitting, not just a smiling. And he said, preacher, I'm for real, countryman. And I'll be smiling at him, but I was number 8 in the company. And you can see when the door opened, everybody go back to their seats. It'd just be a yelling and a spitting and a screaming. And it didn't bother me. I appreciated it. I was still $1 million salesman. And I remember working for another company, and I was in the office again. And the guy didn't understand how I had the poorest debit, but yet was one of the top agents and didn't understand how I could sell insurance in such a community. But anyway, he fussed at me about my arrears, and he'd come down on me. And I said, well, sir, you know what to say. He said, what's that, preacher? I said, it ain't over with until the fat lady sings. And he says, that's right. And I said, you know what, sir? He said, what's that, preacher? She can't sing. He said, why not? I said, because I got a mouth taped. And I would always come out on top. So, but I wasn't worried about it. My music teacher used to throw me out of the music room. You know, he was bringing jazz to the school, and I was a nightclub entertainer on the street. And as he would work with his number one students, I'd be in the music room practicing with my axe, and so I could do this. So his name was John Cudgeman. He was a Mormon. And I'd go out there and I'd say, let me play Cudgy Baby. Let me play. I was 11th grader, but I talked like that because I was here. You know, I was playing with grown folks since I was 14, you know.
Amen.
And he said, "Hey, get out," and he threw me out, chastised me. I turned back around, come back the next day, say, "Come on, Cudgy Baby, let me blow, Cudgy. Give me a little bit." He probably said, "This guy." Throw me out again.
Amen.
I come back again the next day, and they jam. I say, "Cudgy Baby, give me a piece, baby, give me some." So one day he gave me some, and I became first chair.